Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Python tutorial series. In this episode, I want to talk about the slicing in Numpy array in Python, which is a good way to select a sub-array or having access to a specific element of an array by calling the index or some conditions. Let's recall Numpy array as usual. We say import numpy as np. There are three ways for doing the slicing, but before we proceed, I can give you a tip about how we could do, for example, commenting. We know how to do the commenting. Sharp, for example, this is about for example indexing, but this is commenting on the script, but we could do another things and go to markdown, either from here change code to markdown, or click here in the cell and press M and we go to the markdown environment. And the markdown you can have more flexibility to write description of the problem or something similar. So for example, in this case we have three methods for doing slicing. The first one is basic slicing. The second one is integer array indexing, and the third one is Boolean array indexing. I will go through details of each one of these methods and explain to you what it means. First of all, let's define an array A, numpy array np.array. We have two rows and 4 columns, for example 1, 2, 3, 4. It is the first row, and the second row is 5, 6, 7, and 8. And for the first method, which is a basic slicing, I can have access to specific rows or columns of the array. For example, a bracket 0 gives me the first row of the array, because the two-dimensional array is actually a list of lists, something like this, and the first element of this is another list, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, but here we say that this is numpy array actually. Or I can have access to specific columns. For example, I can say a column and 2 give me the third columns of the array, for example 3 and 7 in this case. Here column means that I choose every rows, and 2, but I fix the third column. And we know the indexing in Python start from 0, so index 2 means the third columns. Another method is we could select a sub array from a given array. For example, I can choose a sub array from the second row, from the first row and the second row. But when I use the column as a separator between 0 and 2, it means that we have 0 index and index 1, but the 2 is excluded. So 0 column 2 means just index just the rows 0 and 1, and I can choose the second column and the third column, but 3 here is excluded, so we know the result. So we could see that this is the first and the second row, but second and the third column has been selected 2, 3, 6, and 7, and this is a subarray of the given array. For the second method, which is integer array indexing, we could define a list of index as an array, and we could pair the result as a coordinate system for having access to your array. Let me explain in the example. For example, I have a Numpy array, I call it row index, and this is a Numpy array that the index are 2, 0 and 1. It means that I want to have access to array which the first one, the x coordinate or the row index is 2, but we know that we don't have 3 rows, so I need to change 2 to 1. So the first element comes from the second row, the second element comes from the first row, and again the third element comes from the second row. But also I need to define the column index, which is another Numpy array, and here I have, for example, another arrangement, for example 2, 0 and 1. So here actually we have a pair of result. For example, the first element of the row is 1, and the first element of the column is 2, so I need to have access to element 1, 2, which means the second row and the third column. For the next one, I have 0 and 0, which means I want to have access to element of the first row and the first column. And for the third one, I need to have access to 1 and 1, which is the element of the second row and the second column. And you can see the result. The result is, what is a 1, 2? The 1, 2 is the second row and the third column. Second row and the third column is 7. First row and first column is 1. And second row and the second column is 6. So the result of calling this row index and the column index should be 7, 1 and 6. Sorry, what's happened? Array, sorry, I forgot another one, and you can see the result is 7, 1 and 6. And this is very good when we want to select a specific element in an array in a grid way. You know, we can think of this coordinate as a grid, and this is very helpful. And the third method is Boolean array indexing. And in the Boolean array indexing, we define a condition on the elements of the array, and the array, by calling this condition, filter the result according to this condition. For example, I can say that I want to have access to, I can say that the Boolean index is a Boolean condition, and we call our array A, and I want all members of the array that are, for example, bigger than 3, and this is a Boolean condition. And I can call array A on this Boolean condition, Boolean index, and you can see the result is 4, 5, 6 and 7, and this is the result of calling the condition on Boolean condition on array. And this is also very helpful when we want to filter the result based on some specific precondition we want to have on the array. Thanks for watching of this episode, and then in the next episode we talk about more operation on the Numpy array.